We often focus on the cross and, of course, the empty tomb. But have you ever really stopped to think about what happened in between, in that sacred silence? Today, we're going to explore the burial of Jesus, a moment that might seem like a pause, but is actually filled with profound meaning and incredible truth. So let's turn to the Gospel of John, chapter 19, starting in verse 38. This is where the story is recorded. The crucifixion is over, darkness has fallen, and in this moment of deep sorrow, two men step out of the shadows to perform one last crucial act of devotion. And from the outside, looking in, man, it just looks bleak, doesn't it? A borrowed tomb, a quiet, somber vigil. Everything about this scene screams finality. It feels like the end of the story. But we have to ask ourselves, is that really what's happening here? What if this silence isn't an ending at all? What divine truth is God revealing to us in this quiet, solemn act of burial? You see, this wasn't some hasty, desperate act. The burial of Jesus was a deliberate, reverent duty. It was an act steeped in tradition and just packed with significance. You have to understand the customs of the time. In first-century Judea, a proper burial was a sign of immense respect. The body was carefully prepared with aromatic spices, it was wrapped in clean linen, and then laid in a tomb carved out of rock. Every step taken for Jesus honored these customs, showing deep love and fulfilling the law. And think about who does this. In this moment of utter darkness, when so many of Jesus' closest followers had fled in fear, two very unlikely men step forward. Their once private faith is suddenly transformed into a courageous public action. And just look at this transformation. It's incredible. On one side, you have Joseph of Arimathea. He'd been a secret disciple, but now he's risking his reputation, his position, maybe even his life, to go publicly to Pilate and ask for the body of Jesus. And then there's Nicodemus, the man who first came to Jesus in the dead of night, afraid to be seen. Now he's walking in broad daylight, bringing an almost absurdly generous amount of myrrh and aloes, spices fit for a king's burial. Their fear has been totally conquered by their faith. And their actions were so intentional. Even the words the Bible uses here are powerful. It says they asked and took away the body. They weren't just bystanders overcome with grief. They were active, reverent participants in God's unfolding plan. But here's where it gets even deeper. This burial wasn't just a beautiful act of devotion. It was the precise fulfillment of ancient prophecy, literally sealed in stone. Think about this. Hundreds of years before Jesus was even born, the prophet Isaiah wrote, in chapter 53, verse 9, that the Messiah would be with a rich man in his death. What a stunningly specific detail to predict. And so, who steps forward in this exact moment? Joseph of Arimathea, a wealthy man, a member of the council, offering his very own unused tomb. Just like that, this ancient prophecy is perfectly fulfilled. It's another confirmation of who Jesus is, even in death. But that's not the only promise at play here. This burial also points to an even greater one, from Psalm 16, verse 10. For you will not abandon my soul to Sheol, or let your Holy One see corruption. The burial was temporary. The grave was never going to be the final word. So let's just pause for a second. What is the deep theological truth that was sealed inside that tomb? What is this silence really trying to tell all of us? Well, it really reveals at least four foundational truths. First, it confirms Christ's full humanity. He really truly died and was buried, just like we will be. Second, it shows how God's law and human responsibility were completely honored. Third, and this is so key, it sets the stage perfectly for the resurrection. You see, without a burial, there can be no glorious empty tomb. And finally, it reveals these faithful witnesses, a powerful picture of what discipleship looks like, honoring God no matter what the risk. And this all gets right to the heart of what we call the incarnation. His burial is the final, undeniable proof that the Son of God truly became man. He didn't just look human, he experienced a full human life, right down to a true human death and burial. And because of that, the tomb itself is transformed. It stops being a symbol of defeat and becomes a vessel of an incredible promise. On the one hand, yes, that tomb stands as a monument to judgment. It represents humanity's best attempt to silence the Son of God, to declare a final victory over the divine. The world truly thought it had won. But in that silence, in that darkness, God was at work. That tomb became the sacred space where the promise of a new creation, the promise of resurrection, was being carefully preserved and protected. And this is the ultimate truth of it all. In that tomb, it was not the Son of God who was defeated. No, it was death itself that was laid to rest. His rest sealed our victory. Because Jesus was laid in a grave, the grave has lost its sting, it's lost its power for all who believe in him. His burial is the quiet, unshakable guarantee of your everlasting life.